Ever wondered on how you're supposed to structure your practice lesson to be the best for you? You've just been practicing for hours and you're just getting nowhere, or you just feel really disorganized in your sessions and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Well, I've got a video for you where I'm going to show you how I structure my practice and how I make sure that I'm always moving forward and always enjoying my practice sessions, as after all, the journey that we go on through all of this music should be an enjoyable one, and if you're not enjoying your practice, you won't be getting anywhere. So let's get straight into it. So I like to start my practice sessions just by tuning up my bass, making sure that it's all in the best playing ability for me, and just getting myself into a nice, calm and relaxed space. If there's loads of noise and other stuff going around, I can't get in the headspace to practice. And I recommend a dedicated practice space where you can go and just chill and then get ready, get your bass tuned up, and then start your practice session. And you'll be much more focused when you're in it if you have that dedicated space and if you have that sense of calmness with your practice space. Then afterwards, I like to start just with a little tune that I already know, and since I'm a jazz man, I'll just start with a jazz standard that I've been working on recently that, you know, I just want to play again. And it's good actually, if you did the last thing in your practice session from your previous one, if you tag it into the start of your next one, you can see your progress different. So if I was working on, let's say, Recorder Me in my last practice session and the melody on that, I'll start my practice session with that exact same thing and see how far I've gone. Often if I'm practicing late at night, and you know, a lot of you probably will as well, when I come onto it the next day, I've got way more progress done, and all I've done is sleep on it, and that is a good thing. I think between practice sessions, it's good to have sleep and have a sleep session between. So practice at one point every day. Two sort of doesn't really do much. If you've got the time and you want to practice, or you need to get some things done, then by all means practice for longer. But if you try and keep it into one session and then sleep between sessions, it will play much better, I think, and gaining your progress further along the way, as sleeping in between sessions really just locks it in for me, and I make so much more progress the next day when I get into it. So after you've done the thing that either you've been working on in your last practice session near the end of it, or just a tune that you know, it's always good to start with just something that you're really familiar with, and it makes you feel good about what you're playing. It makes you feel comfortable about what you're playing, and that's the space you want to get into when you start practicing. Then in that sort of mid-section, you've got to think to yourself, what is something that I want to learn, or you know, want to do going forward? What's something that's perhaps a little bit challenging? And find whatever tune or music that is for you. For me, it will just be, I'm just going to learn another jazz standard. What have I been listening to recently? It's great to listen in between practice sessions and get inspiration for stuff you want to learn, and then you can either find the sheet music online or work it out by ear. That's a good thing. This middle ground in this practice session should be about doing something new and something exciting, or something that you've been recently working on as well, because you know, with challenges, it can take several practice sessions to get where you want to go. So it's good to work on this new thing or something new every practice session. But it is good to get the grounding sort of by the end of it. It's like, right, I've got all of what I wanted down today, and then I can continue that on. I find if you don't get a sense of just, okay, I've actually achieved something in this practice session, in this sort of learning something new time, you often feel not great after the practice session is finished. So if there's a really difficult tune which you want to learn, then why not just learn the first 4 bars of it? And you know, you don't have to do it at the original tempo, or do all of it at a slower tempo and just get it under your fingers. And it's good to play along with these backing tracks as well, or just the original tune if you want that as well. I feel like you can cut these difficult things up into sections, as it should be challenging for you to progress further on. But sometimes you're just going to work on something that isn't particularly challenging, but you just want to play it because it sounds good. And that's another element in learning new things and listening to stuff. If you listen to things when you're not practicing, you can be like, oh, I like that, I'm going to put that in the back of my mind. Next time I pick up my instrument, I'm going to play that. And often you're going to have so much more of an enjoyable time If you're listening to tunes, you're like, I'm really liking this tune, and then you play it, it just feels absolutely amazing when you do, and you're learning new material, which is great. But you could expand this out into just, I'm going to learn one new tune a week. It doesn't have to be every practice session I'm going to do something new. But I do think you have to do something slightly challenging, or perhaps something you're working on, or again, a new thing in that mid section of your practice session. So you've done something in the beginning, which is just all nice and chill and easy and what you know well, or it could be challenging, but you still know it well if you're more advanced, and then get into something which you don't know, some unfamiliar territory, and have a go with that. Because I often find once you work through it and you're over that hurdle and you've learnt it, or it's a great tune you've been listening to and you love the process of learning it and playing it, and you want to play it so badly that you put all that time and you put all that effort in, the reward is so much better in the long run, and you're going to feel a lot more progress. If you just keep working on the same stuff over and over and over again, it can get really boring, and also you're not really progressing, you're just practicing the same thing over and over again. We need to get our fingers doing different things, so we need to keep doing new things. It keeps our brains happy and it keeps us happy, and most importantly, it keeps you improving as a musician. As a thing that we don't want to do is really not improve, and you can feel this after breaks like holidays and things like that. It is totally fine to sort of go back a step, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as ultimately we want our general trend of performance and practice to be upwards. We want to get better over time, but some days we will just play worse than other days, and some days we'll be playing better than other days. At times we'll be accelerating in growth much faster, in times we'll be sort of plateauing in growth, in some ways in improvement, and it's totally fine and normal to have all of this, and you sort of just have to accept it and enjoy the process. You're like, oh, I'm not playing as great today. Well, you can probably practice for a little bit less of a time, but play something that you really like and really enjoy a bit more, and perhaps spend a little bit less time on the something new. Don't push yourself and just like sort of make yourself annoyed with how badly you're playing today. If you feel that way, I think you should just work on something that just makes you feel good on those days, and you'll feel much better when you get to one of those good days, and then you can put a heck of a lot of progress in then. As we don't want to be pushing ourselves and going so far, pushing ourselves too far, I should say. We do want to be pushing ourselves, but not to the extent where essentially we get worse to some extent. There's this curve with the practice session that you get better as you get into it, and then you reach the top, and then you slowly start getting worse at something. And this is definitely the stage where you could over practice in a way, and over practicing isn't necessarily bad, but when you get to the point where you've been playing this thing for ages and you're still not quite getting it, and now you're getting it just sort of not as good every single time, just stop. Just put the bass down and end the practice session. Just be like, right, I'll come to it in the morning. It is really up to you when you need to decide, okay, right, this isn't working today. Just have a break, have a chill. Don't push yourself too far, because you're really just not going to enjoy it, and then come back to it with a fresh mind, and you'll often find that you can get it pretty much straight away. So then you've got through your new thing, and you've done your new thing, or you either decide, oh, I'm going to stop now because I'm getting worse at this new thing. Now I've reached that curve of where I need to just stop and leave it alone, or you've reached the stage where you're like, right, I've learned that now. That's great. Should I end my practice session here? And well, definitely you could. I think there's a nice last thing that you can do to your practice session to really make you feel more satisfied. And that's, again, sort of do what you did at the beginning, perhaps with a different tune, not the exact same one, but go back to something familiar and something that you know, and just play it to finish, and you'll feel so much more satisfied at the end of your practice session. Because if it's something you know, and you know really well, and it's just such a great piece of music for you, then you're going to enjoy playing it. And then when you play at the end of your practice session, no matter how you felt about that middle segment, you're going to end leaving and feeling much more satisfied with your practice. And then from there, you're like, okay, right, I'm progressing and I'm feeling so much better about my playing. Again, you want to end your practice sessions feeling satisfied, or at least you know, right, I'm going to leave it, I need the space. You've got to accept it when you need the space, but I always try and end my practice sessions satisfied with what I've done, as I don't want to feel down about what I've been practicing and, you know, potentially how well I might or might have not done, because ultimately we have good days and bad days. Like I've said, everyone goes through it. You're not the only one, and everyone had to start from the beginning someday. So if you're looking up to all these people and just like, I'll never be as good as them, just stop with that mentality and just think, right, how do I get as good as them? And what do I need to do to progress myself? As ultimately, you are your greatest critic and your greatest teacher as well. While you can seek information from loads of other sources like other bass players and videos from myself or other bass channels on YouTube, ultimately you've got to apply and understand those mechanics and improvements that you want to do yourself, and then from that is how you get better, because ultimately you teach yourself. While other teachers can get you there faster, and that's what I'm here to do, is to speed up your process and give you some guidance, it's ultimately you which have to build the habits and then do this over time. You're not going to become the most fantastic bass player overnight, and the hard truth is you simply have to put the time in to become a great bass player. But if you structure your practice lesson in this simple 3-step way of just before it starts, get yourself in a space and get your bass tuned, get it set up so you're playing the best before you even play a note, get it set up so it all sounds great, and then start with something familiar, go through it and really enjoy that piece of music. Then if you've been listening to stuff, which I always recommend you do when you're not practicing and you're just doing nothing, do some listening, because it makes you better as well. And then from your listening, you engage in that musical language, and then from that you can apply that into your practice session via tunes that you might want to learn, and then you can transcribe some things out by ear as well. I will be doing a video on transcribing at some point if you want it, so comment below if that is something you're interested in, and then, you know, go through that phase and then end with something that really satisfies you, and then boom, you've got this perfect formula where you start and you're focused and you enjoy the start of your practice session, you get some good progress done in that middle section, and then, you know, you end with something great as well, and you are left feeling satisfied with your practice. Again, structure this with really as much time as you have. So let's say if you've got 10 minutes, then do the first 2.5 playing something you like, then do the next 5 doing the sort of really practical stuff and the new stuff, and then the last 2.5 minutes doing whatever tune this is that you want to do and that you like at the end to make yourself feel satisfied. But if it's a 4-hour practice session, obviously you're not going to spend 1 hour doing a tune you like at the start and 1 hour tune that you like at the end. So you've got to judge it, but just 1 tune at the start, 1 tune at the end, really, and then whatever time you have in the middle, do that. You're going to have different amounts of practice times each day, and I know a lot of you have limited practice time, and that can really be an issue, but ultimately you have to structure it in a way that relates to your practice time in a good way, and, you know, becomes doable with the amount of time you have each day to practice, as practicing daily is ultimately the route to the most success, as you're going to keep going on that progression. You won't really have those backwards curves which you might not want, but, you know, ultimately stuff gets in the way, holidays get in the way of your practice. So, you know, it's fine. You don't have to play every day. You don't have to be so strict and so religious with it. But if you have the time in your day, then please do. We don't have the issues like with other horn instruments where we're really loud. We can practice at whatever time we like, because bass is one of the quietest instruments. We're not amplified. We're all good on that front. So you can practice whenever you want, and we're really lucky in that way. And you can just put headphones in or an earbud in and get your tunes up, get your music up, and whatever you need to get your ideal practice session. So that is all I have for today's video. I hope this has helped with just a simple basic structure for your practice session, and I hope that this manages to get you to propel yourself forward perhaps even more and give yourself a great structured practice session which makes you move forward and become a better bass player, and still makes you enjoy your practice sessions. And if you're not enjoying your practice sessions, you're not making progress, and, you know, ultimately if you don't enjoy your music, why are you even doing it? But anyway, that's it for today. Hope that you've enjoyed. Do the like, do the subscribe, do all that stuff, especially if you've watched me ramble for this long, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.